everybody has high expectations from themselves. They want to do something as good as they can. If they want to do it, they want to do it right. But part of that is getting past, the awkward, messy beginning phase and like being able to live and sit through that phase and do the work to figure it out before you get this, great idea at the end. Like that takes work. It's not like something perfect's going to come together, but if you don't try, you're never going to get close to anything, 9 times out of 10, it's like you sit down and start doing it and then you're like, oh, like this feels good, creating and putting ideas out. It's like a naturally endorphin really, or natural high, basically, just from like, I'm doing it. And, if you can be your own biggest motivator in that regard, then that's just like, hell yeah.
Gavin Gerundo, at Gavinger with a G. Dude is a visionary painter, like one of the most talented human beings I've probably ever gotten to speak with. His work speaks for itself. If you're looking around there, my name's Cam, as you probably already know if you've been following, but this is the Weird Music Podcast, and Gavin, super glad to have you here. So we're looking at your art. It looks fucking awesome. How would you describe your art style?
It's kind of something that's always been like a changing definition, and like kind of coming into a style. But like part of the style, I think, is, this constant exploration. And that's what it was founded on. It's just, taking an idea and just fleshing it out and going with it. As far as where my like visual style's at right now, I'm really into creating like atmospheres, kind of like places that don't exist, but could exist, almost like a dream state. So a lot of my art's moving towards these really like kind of ethereal yet crisp, like it's almost like sitting on a dream that's so cloudy. And then you think on the idea until it comes into clarity, like going back and taking this thing that was just this vague idea in your head and really fleshing it out through like the act of daydreaming versus dreaming. Why
do you think you ended up painting this kind of style?
It started off as like I've always just been like really attached to nature, really like it's where I've gotten my inspiration. And I really started with like painting animals and choosing those as like totems, kind of. They're like this thing that's, we recognize from the world around us, maybe something we don't encounter every day, like a leopard or a cheetah. But, it's like this reminder of this thing that is in the universe that we can relate to. That's like not, it's so psychedelic and so crazy in nature, but it's like right here on this planet with us. So to have that grasp of reality and then take that and put it into an environment and try and tell that story of like what that animal speaks to people, and then how, the animal in the environment can reflect, a certain state of mind.
So like using imagery to really draw out the symbology of like the archetype of a given type of creature. That's kind of how you got started with this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like spirit animals. Everybody has these like spirit animals that are drawn to them, where they're like, I am this animal, they embody this. And it's just like the animals are an important connection kind of between us and like the plants and the dirt of like this so wildly natural thing that's also like really similar to us,
Take me through that precipice of you really stepping into your power as this professional artist and what that was like.
Yeah, I mean, it really started, I'd always kind of done art in some different form throughout my life. Like I used to really love colored pencils in high school. But it was always kind of just like, a class that I took, something that I did in my time. It wasn't something where I was like, I kind of had that paradigm in my head of like starving artist. So I always had ideas of like what else I wanted to do. So I started college studying industrial design, which is like product design. So it's, I would go home and my homework would be like, draw 100 toasters, and you have to come up with 100 ways to draw toasters. So that was like a lot of like really good, like technical development as far as my skills. But about 2 years into that, I started to really get into music festivals and specifically Rootwire 2013. That one was huge for me as far as like I went there and I saw the artists all around and I was like, wow, like this is amazing to have this, music and art and people interacting in this unique way. So that really that lit a fire under my ass. So I really started to kind of like hone in on what I wanted to do at the festivals. And started live painting shortly after that, like 2014. I was originally painting leather jackets at shows. So I would take like old leather jackets and stretch them over, whatever I could find, and just started painting. And, it was kind of this thing. I always wanted to have like a weird approach to art. Like I just, like switching it up and messing with mediums and stuff. So I did that. And then eventually it was just like, all right, the jackets are cool, but like, I want to expand these ideas, make them like more immersive with the ideas of like paintings, as like these square windows into these other worlds that can really like transport and teleport you. And, that idea, it's continually still expanding into like the more immersive kind of art, which is kind of where my head's at now, like trying to create interactive objects and interactive spaces, like really things that put you into it. So it was really like, I was being put into that experience that made me want to be like, I want to provide that to other people and, inspire people. And that's one of the cool things about the live art scene is like all these people who are coming by and admiring are like, they're having a spark lit within them. And, and they carry that flame and, they go back and integrate it and then they start painting. And then, 8 years from now, however long, it's like, they could be sitting in my shoes and like living off their art full time. So it's really just like, just compounds and compounds and just keeps growing,
I think it's so interesting. You use the word immersive like that. I feel like the goal of any creator is to make something meaningful to the extent where it's an immersive experience. Like it really does captivate in that way. When you look at painting or when you look at really any discipline, there's this standard approach, right? Like, okay, here's the canvas, let's make the painting. Branching away from the standard approach of art that, most of us see, how does doing that allow you to create a more immersive piece?
Well, specifically, I mean, the way the interactive thing kind of started was slowing down from festivals. So I started to like kind of be really in my home space and like not traveling and touring full time. So it really got me thinking about like, the objects around you and how your home space is like an extension of yourself. And beautifying that. And like the first thing I got was a painted radio. It was like an old, I think it was like a 60s radio. And it was just like a wooden thing. And it had these like cool cathedral kind of speakers on them. And, it barely worked. It like tuned into like 2 radio stations and they were both like Christian country, of course. So that was like kind of a bit of a kickstart for like thinking about like objects in the home, like taking the art from the walls to like everyday objects. And then, from that, it moved into the jewelry boxes. And, I've never really like been a big jewelry person. So it's not been something that I've interacted with, but I found one and it was just so cool. And like, that kind of just started to get me thinking on this idea of, having these interactive objects where it's like, it's in your home and you like use it every day. And it's just like this little reminder there that like, wow, shit's crazy, And the way people have like responded to it is insane. And it's really been a niche. And, I started doing it in September and I've done like 75 of them. And, it's not something where I like just make it and sell it. It's something where it's kind of like a snowballing thing. Every time I post one, somebody will reach out and they'll want one. And to make them like custom for somebody where it's like, whether it's for them or whether it's a gift, like to have something that's like so personal, like in your life created for you, just to have that beautiful sense of reverie, like in your everyday life. It's just, it's something that we need to tap into. It's easy to get like kind of lost in the mundanity of the day and just, life is whatever, but like, no, life's pretty crazy, Being
a human being, we have this ability in our minds to project into the future. We have an idea first, and then we envision and plan, and then even maybe outline, and then we put pen to paper. We put, then after that, like, paint to paper or to clocks or to jewelry, whatever it might be. How do you mentally approach art?
So, I mean, it comes back to kind of like my theory of like where I'm at with what I'm trying to portray is like the taking that dream and then like daydreaming on it. And that's the actualization. It's just like with the psychedelic experience and integration, you take these crazy lofty ideas and you have to work them out. I would say the biggest thing like for creative ideas is like, starting it. Like you have this general idea. So like people get so caught up and, you'd think with really technical geometric art, it would start like super small, but it's really about like just getting like the mess of an idea out there, like figure out what like the pieces are and get the mess out there. And, that goes with anything really. It's just, you got to think on the pieces, and then you just got to kind of like, bleh, and then, refine. And you take the parts that are important that you got out in the beginning, and and those parts can change. That's totally okay. You can paint over it, metaphorically speaking. But, or literally speaking in the case of a painter. But it's really just about just doing it. And that, that kind of sounds cliche saying it, but it's like, that's what it is. It's taking those lofty ideas and get it out there. Once it's out there, then you use like the daydreaming part where you're like in your waking life and you have that idea out there. And then that's when you kind of crystallize. Everybody has high expectations from themselves. They want to do something as good as they can. If they want to do it, they want to do it right. But part of that is getting past, the awkward, messy beginning phase, and like being able to live and sit through that phase and do the work to figure it out before you get this, great idea at the end. Like that takes work. It's not like something perfect's going to come together, but if you don't try, you're never going to get close to anything,
One thing I think is a huge advantage for people who excel at what they do is they were able to get started failing sooner. They got a head start on, really getting, a feel for what they're doing and getting the kinks out of their system.
Having that willingness to jump in and fail a few times,
That head start, failing a lot quickly, especially younger on, like that to me is overlooked by people. Perfectionism is so pervasive.
It gets in the way of ourselves having that perfectionist attitude. And, even like sometimes sitting in the studio and I'll be surrounded by paintings and I'll just be like, wow, like, how am I going to do that again kind of deal? And then it's like, oh, like, just, do it, like, get on it. And you got to self-motivate yourself. It's like, you can never, it's like you take in these outside influences where you like start something, and you gotta be your own motivator in that regard. Like, you want to do it because you want to do it.
How do you self-motivate?
I mean, it's been a long process, and there's still like, it goes through points where I'm like, man, I need to work more. And then, there's other times where I'm like, all right, I need to like give myself a break. And it's a constant battle. And, with like being self-employed and such a thing as like creativity that's like, can be so fleeting is definitely difficult. But that's how having a variety of projects has really come in handy for me. Like having different things. I used to be like, start a painting, finish a painting. But now it's like, start a painting and allowing yourself to like, let it sit there if you don't know what to do. And then, if I don't feel like working on paintings, I'll work on a jewelry box, and having like different outlets where it's like, it is about putting in the work for sure. Like you have to take the time and just do it and sit down and do it, like anything. So, and then, 9 times out of 10, it's like you sit down and start doing it. And then you're like, oh, like this feels good, creating and putting ideas out. It's like a naturally endorphin really, or natural high, basically, just from like, I'm doing it. And, if you can be your own biggest motivator in that regard, then that's just like, hell yeah,
Looking at all your paintings, dream worlds are a focal point of your style. Are there certain themes of feelings and emotions that you invoke within these dream worlds that you paint? And kind of the real question I'm asking is, how do you approach deciding that?
I mean, it's, there's different times call for different things. And I think a lot of, just in the same way that like your waking life affects your subconscious, affects your dreams, it's like that naturally comes out in things. So it's interesting, like looking back on paintings, and there's this similar vein obviously created by me through them, but seeing the different places I was, and how like use of colors, it's like kind of almost comes out naturally, whether you want it to or not. If you focus on like where you're at, and that's where trying to keep it authentic, I think, like helps out, and just trying to like go with it and not force anything. It'll like naturally portray that just by, you're spending 40 hours with this piece of work or 100 hours with this piece of work. It's like where you're at is going to come out in that.
Do you think you've gotten better over time at creating while not forcing anything?
Definitely. That's, when I started painting, I was using paint pens entirely. So it was all very, very finite. Every mark was super decisive. Everything was super planned. There was a formula to it versus now, because I picked up a paintbrush 3-4 years ago. Before that, it was all paint pens. Really having the paintbrush and just kind of embodying that Bob Ross mentality of just letting it happen and just, not stressing it too much and just putting things in place. And it's like, there are no mistakes, only happy accidents. So it's really just about, I think keeping that sort of mentality and just like letting it be. But that comes with a comfort, that's where allowing yourself to get into the flow state, like, which is with a lot of things. It's not just with art that you have this flow state. Like in the festival community, you're spinning poi and you get in, it's just like this zone where your conscious mind isn't so much working. It's more your subconscious and like loosely directing it, but you're just so in it that it's like, it doesn't matter what happens essentially.
I'm curious, when you necessarily aren't stoked to work on a piece, do you start working on the piece and then you kind of get into a flow state, or are you someone who waits until you're fully ready? Like, do you do your work even necessarily when you don't want to work?
Absolutely. And it's, that's one of those things, going back to like putting in the work and just being willing to like put out a mess and like, I don't necessarily feel like it, but I'm going to start. And then it's like, you get into that flow state and you're like, yeah, why would I be doing anything else with my time? Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. But part of being self-regulated and self-motivated is like just getting yourself in that. And that's how you get into the flow state. You're not just going to be like in life, like, all right, I'm flowing here onto the canvas. You can't control that, but you can put yourself in that, intentionally.
What are some of the lessons that have stuck with you the most that you've learned from being an artist?
I think allowing grace for yourself has been a big lesson for me, particularly lately. That's been, in my head, we feel called to like constantly be in this peak state. And, we have to allow ourselves, it's not like our lives are peak valley. It's ups and downs within that. So it's just allowing ourselves to like kind of give yourself space. It's like, you have to be a certain level of hardness on yourself to be motivated, but then you got to be careful not to be too hard on yourself, and put too much pressure on yourself that's unnecessary. There's a lot of factors to live in life, and, we can't control it, but we gotta give ourselves some time to work through it and give ourselves, just be kinder to ourselves. It's big.
So have you leaned at all into NFTs? Is that something you've done research in or are dabbling with at all yet?
I've dabbled. I minted one myself, but my account didn't get verified for some reason. So it's kind of like, a puddle of money somewhere on the internet that I invested in for it, and can't see it. I collaborated with one artist, Stephen Hutchins. He did an animation of one of my pieces, and that's up on the NFT space. But my direction is like, I know it's such a good opportunity for artists, but my direction is, I think there's other artists who are better suited for it as far as creating digital content. My head's more in creating, physical content and, moving from this kind of stuff to like buildings. And I think there's crossover between digital and my art that will happen. But at this point, it's, I'm happy to do it through collaboration, but it's like, I feel like I have enough going on in other realms that if I I can't get too deep into that.
Within art, within music, beyond, who are some people that just have been inspiring to you?
I mean, as far as music and culture goes, Papadozio has been huge. I mean, they really were one of the first people that really made me feel something within the music scene that really made me feel that community and culture. And, since seeing them, I've been to 150 shows, and they're here in Nashville. So there's lots of chances to collaborate and do shows with them. So it's great to be able to kind of kick back that creativity that they gave to me to people who are going to their shows now, and work with somebody who's so inspiring. And then, as far as artists, we're in such a renaissance of arts right now, where there's so much good art out there. And these artists are able to find a platform and find an audience. There's so many, so many inspiring artists. It'd be hard to even narrow it down. I mean, there's some people like Hannah Yada, for example. She's one of my favorite painters, absolutely phenomenal oil painter. You like look at her paintings in person, it's insane. And props to the Mattis. Like, I don't even know how. Like, teach a class, Hannah Yada, please. And then there's other ends of it. There's a lot of people who are inspiring for different reasons. Like Chris Morphus is a great example. He's one of those people that's like, he's out there painting every day, whether he's like in his studio making some crazy TikTok video, or he's like, busting some incision, like painting dragons, getting it. Like, it's just so inspiring to see people who are so in their creative flow like that. And, everything he does for linking up the community and just really making sure that that's a part and being a pioneer. And then there's all breadths of people. I think there's inspiration to take from like any kind of artist, anybody who's doing their thing. It's like, there's so much there's so much inspiration to draw from other people crushing it in their own rights.
I feel like in this post-pandemic world that we're all going into now, one change I would love to see is artists to have more equal of a stage with musicians.
Absolutely. And I just got back from a mountain music festival, and that one was fantastic because they really, Pigment Sanctuary does their art gallery. It has for a few years. They're out of West Virginia. They're like opening a gallery in, I think, Princeton, West Virginia. But they like have really been working with the festival to make it like this huge like center point. Like, it's the main stage and then the main art tent. And it's like the chill area. It's like a lounge. People would want, the sun's out. People want the shade. They want to like do something during the day that's cool, and, take that experience from just like the nighttime, wow, to like a full inspiring experience that you can take home and integrate and, pull the parts you like back into your life. And like, people are so excited at this festival after the pandemic, dude. Like, just, it was insane the way people were into the art. And it's like, I had a little nerve coming back to it, because it's like, after doing it, 2020, I was supposed to do like 30 festivals. So it's like, when you're so in it, there's a jadedness that's hard to fight off. So like, I was holding that trepidation through the pandemic, and then coming into it, it was just like instantly, it was like, no, like and I instantly remembered why I do what I do and why I haul my art across the country and, and paint and live paint for people and share my art in that way. It's just, it's incredible to have any sort of stage. And it's cool to see people like really starting to give an appreciation for it. Like Resonance last year, there were like 100 painters in a row. And it's like, yes, like, get it. Like, let's get it as immersive as we can. Let's think big. And, there's lots of people, and Pigment Sanctuary is a good example. It's a lot of artists that I've been painting with for 7-8 years. So to see where everybody's come since then, and how we can all put our ideas and how much we've grown to like, to the point where now it's like, yeah, we really like deserve that platform. It's about a collaboration between the production teams and us. It's like, let us do our thing, give us the platform, and we'll rock it for you. There's a lot of things that have really changed for the better, I think, because of everything that's happened. But, there's that golden element of people. And that's what makes life important, is like connecting with people, and yeah, just, and for art, like being able to touch people is like, and really make them feel something is like, it's huge. And so showing my work in person, it's like, I've been working on a lot of these paintings, and it's like, by the time it's done being painted, it's like 3 people have seen it, and I can like do a time lapse, but that's not really like there in the studio. So to like really share that, it's just, I mean, it's unmatched. Like, it's so cool.
Fuck yeah. Kind of winding down here, Gavin, any advice you might want to offer to up and coming artists?
Absolutely. I think it's, just smoosh it would be a good way to start. When in doubt, just kind of get something out there, back to that, like that same lesson is get it out there and then put in the time. You got to sit down. If you want to make a painting, then sit down and make the painting, and you're not going to get anywhere with it if you don't start. And art is a learned skill for sure. So if you're a painter, the people around you, like that's one of the cool things about the festival scene, having all these amazing painters and being able to like talk and like really like discuss cool like theories and stuff, and just being able to like spitball in such a way that's like, you know, we don't have to go to college anymore to be a painter. Like that's stupid. We can learn from our peers, you know, and every artist that I've ever met and painted with is like happy to share. They're happy to talk about it. And it's less competitive and more like collaborative and like, yeah, let's all make some awesome shit. Let's go.
Well, man, thank you for that advice. Like open source wisdom. Book was wide open from Gavin here. Shout out to you, man. Pass it forward, not hoarding any of that juju you've got locked up in here.
Never.
It's so great to connect like this. I can't wait to see you at festivals coming up here.
Absolutely.
Soon.
Thank you so much for having me on here. It's been a pleasure to talk to you and brainstorm together.
So anyone who's gotten this far, at Gavinger with a G, the homie is open for custom commissions, not just on canvases. You got a grandfather clock, you got a jewelry box, whatever
you can imagine.
So check him out, give him a follow, subscribe to the podcast. You got someone you think should be a guest, let us know. This has been the Weird Music Podcast. We love you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.